Welcome back, everybody, to episode 5 of our Automation, the car company tycoon game Let's Play as Carota Motors, the company that rose from the ashes of the war with nothing but an empty factory and a failed scooter business to build fun little cars for everybody. Our first car was the Coniglio, and we've now replaced it with the second generation, our main selling car. It's a little hatchback with a front boxer engine, and people seem to like it. We've got a regular version, a cheap interior version, and just recently, a van version, which is selling very well. And in the last episode, we introduced the Caprese, our sports car, which is named after a salad. It is also selling pretty well. We had some hard times, but now we are into mass production and we are making plenty of money. So the only real question is what to do with our stacks of cash so we can stay on top, or get to the top more like. We're actually a pretty small company still compared to the big fish. The other big challenge for this episode is that the game has updated. We are now on Ellisbury Update Patch 3, which has some major changes to transmission reliability and the way grip is calculated. We'll watch out for these when we're making the updates to our cars. In this episode, we've got to make some improvements to our new Caprese and our second generation Coniglio, which I think will be sticking around for a little longer. And we probably have money to introduce a new model. So what are we doing next exactly? Well, let's consult our viewers and board of directors. First things first, the board of directors seems to be pretty happy. We're getting lots of positive feedback. And we should be, considering how much money we're making. Elderon Analyst asks, do you make the interiors in your car? He's watching the first episode where I haven't started doing that yet. I'm sure it would add a couple hours to the design process. Yes, it does, my man. Yes, it does. And yet, people seem to be pretty demanding about it. Our board member who named the Caprese, our little cheap sports car, is pretty confident that it's successful because its name is confusing with a salad. We talked about how our marketing was so small, we're probably being sold out of department stores instead of proper car dealerships in the early area of the company. So, it's possible someone ordered a Caprese and ended up with a $15,000 bill. Now, what kind of car do we want to plan on adding to our lineup next? We've got a couple comments that are interested in sort of a Grand Tourer type car, maybe a 6-cylinder boxer to be added to our existing 4-cylinder boxer. That won't fit in the Coniglio, but it could fit in larger cars. Besides a more premium sports car like a Grand Tourer, we have some people who are interested in maybe a middle-sized or luxury vehicle. That would be a good way to go take it to our rival, Dunbar 3. That's the competitor save file I've added here that's selling mainly in the luxury market. They're on their Model 2 sedan right now, which is apparently very comfortable, so it'll be hard for us to measure up. But I would like to see if we can overtake them. However, it seems like the most popular option on the board of directors is a dedicated van or utility vehicle. That makes sense since the Scatola trim we added to our Coniglio is selling pretty well. So we're going to wait a little bit, but that's probably the most likely new model that we'll add to our lineup, would be something utility and delivery oriented, and we have some fun options for that, I think. Oh, and the last thing to keep in mind is that along with the game feature changes in the update, the generic AI competitor cars have been improved and recreated. So we might find the market just a little harder to sell into. Remember, we're playing on insane difficulty, or a 100 times score multiplier, which is more difficult than the default insane option. So all of our competition gets a 30% increase to their desirability, which is why our cars are showing up as less than 100% desirable. As to say, they're not as good as the best-selling cars in their respective markets. But that's also averaged over 3 markets. We can see that the Coniglio Scatola, our little delivery vehicle, is highly desirable in light delivery, despite that penalty, and the Primo is highly desirable in city market. The car that looks like it's doing the worst on desirability is the Caprice, but it's actually selling pretty well because it's pretty affordable. It's our only car that's actually cheap for its market, whereas the Coniglio is still, unfortunately, rather on the expensive side. Now, before we get quite moving, I'm going to roll the time forward a little bit. Watch that money rake in. Money. We've unlocked some shocks I want to put in the next version of the car. I don't think any other important technology is coming up, so we can probably stop. Right there in 1967. The Publix discovered a quality issue from Car Factory. We got a little reputation damage because we didn't send out an official recall on whatever problem we had. I believe we chose to quietly repair it when it came up. But that's okay. So there, January 1967. Our sales have slowed down a little bit. We've got stock building up for the Caprice. In fact, I'm going to lower the price yet further, ignoring the Lua error. And where's the Caprice being made? I'm not sure. Oh, it's in our smaller factory. Must be Car Factory 1. We can cut that down to half a shift. And that reminds me, I wanted to rename my factories because Car Factory 1 isn't very memorable, is it? I was going to name them after the locations that they might be in on our little fictitious map of the automation game world. I've just exited out to the new game screen because I honestly don't know how else to get a good look at this map. But let's see, Ia Gastella. I believe that's where we do our little test drives. And that's definitely the location of our starting car and engine factory, our initial plots of land. And I think we've probably moved to Khalid's, the nearby large city. It's on the mainland for our second set of factories. So that's how I'll name them. There. The initial car and engine factory are Ia Gastella. The newer car and engine factories are Khalid's North. And I'll probably want to delete it from the list soon. But we've had our outsourced engines before we could afford our own engine factory built by Steve's Discount Foundry. And they're not as good build quality as the rest. It's good that we're rid of them. So it's time to make the C facelift of the second generation Coniglio. And we'll always, of course, start the tuning with our Primo trim, the premium version of the car that everything else is built around. It will also be the third generation of our Lanita boxer engine. We chose this shape of engine so that we could fit it front-wheel drive because we didn't have the option to put it sideways back when we first built the car, like a modern front-wheel drive would be. My big design philosophy here is to essentially keep the power up what we have while improving fuel efficiency. So we've used up the power we gained by reducing the cams a little bit, reducing the stiffness of the springs, and we also cheaped out a little more on the pistons because we can do that as our baseline technology gets better without breaking the car. I'm not sure if I want to add any more quality points around. Trying to see what's cheap to do. Top end quality I can do. I can go to +2. And fuel system, we're already at +4. Going to +5 takes half a man-hour. Gets us power, efficiency, everything. Yeah, I can go to +5 on. Well, if you have a carbureted engine, it's important to have a good carburetor. Exhaust +3 as well. Why not? Because it's 53 horsepower. And a good bit more efficiency if we compare it to the last one. Yeah, we gained a whole % of thermal efficiency. That's pretty good for us. Power's tiny bit less, basically the same. Reliability is improved. we now have the option of a lot more speeds in our transmission. And we have new information. So we have the bonuses or penalties to drivability and reliability right here on the gearing graph. And we have a reliability penalty of 2.5%. And that's mainly driven by how far apart the top and bottom gear ratios are. I think it might be a little steep for some situations right now. I'm not sure how realistic it is. But that's something to watch out for, is if you give your engine or your transmission some crazy gearing, it will hurt the reliability of your car a lot in the current update. Adding a fourth speed actually has made that penalty go away, in addition to all kinds of better stats. So normally adding more speeds makes the transmission less reliable because you just have more moving parts to fail. But in this case, it seems to do good for us. I don't think I even need to tweak anything. I'll just leave it right there with 4 speeds. Something changed about the, weight distribution or whatever. And our car now has terminal oversteer. So I'll need to tweak something. And that will be front camber that I had for some reason. Let's get less of that. Oh yes, and of course the new mono tube dampers. I'll look up a picture of those. It says the extra expense of monotube dampers compared to twin tube, quote, often puts them out of reach of low-budget designs. And it adds $20.20, no man-hours, and 2 weeks of engineering in exchange for 0.8 comfort and 0.3 sportiness. I think that's a pretty done deal. That's not expensive at all. Now I've just got to go copy those improvements more or less over to the Merde, our cheap baseline version of the Coniglio, and Scatola, the delivery van. The delivery van gets its 4th speed and a little shorter gearing all around to increase that utility stat that determines how much it can carry effectively. Actually, no, I'm on the Merde. Hang on, I shouldn't have done that at all. I've just screwed up my gearing. So as I was saying, the Merde version has a little longer gearing to get that fuel economy up to 30 miles per gallon. Which I think is pretty good for 1967. I also forgot to add disc brakes to the other cars in the last episode, and they are definitely all getting disc brakes. I keep debating whether I want to add an undercladding tray. They are surprisingly expensive, but they do gain us, fuel economy, reliability, because they're at the bottom of the car, comfort, and everything. I'll put them on all the cars, and I'll price it in, see how it looks. So the van gets some fairly short gearing, but it has to combat that reliability penalty, so it's getting a top speed of a rather miserable, 80 miles an hour. Doesn't help the fuel economy either. But as long as it can carry loads and tow stuff, it's a good van. Alright, once I managed to finally stop reading what I was doing, all 3 versions gets monotube suspension, dampers, disc brakes, including on the crappy run, and aerodynamic under trays. And most of the engineering time does come from that under tray, but still, we're only looking at 18 months baseline. Not too bad. I'm going to add a little funding to this. We can afford to spend $20 million, probably. Alright, tweaking everything. We're at a final time of 20 months to get this new version out. So it'll be coming out in 1968. And the engine isn't done with this update because we have to do the Sport version too. But we're eyeing up again, 1968. Do I want to spend $124 million on a factory expansion? I think I might. I'll have to spend money on marketing to make it worthwhile, though. Oh, it's a big effect, but it's very expensive to get these sliders up. And quality assurance is costing me some production, too. Well, I think the next 20 months, if I keep making income like this, it'll be worth it to spend it on the factory. And I'm hoping we can knock down prices across the board by at least a couple $1,000s. Yeah, that price point should keep even the larger factory busy. That's what my factory shifts graph down here is telling me. Actually, hang on. We might not be done yet. Well, I'm not planning to add a luxury mid-size car to our lineup right now. We can try making a nicer to sit-in version of the Coniglio. Why? That worked nicely. Barely mangled my textures at all. I just gotta move this badge on down. Which, I'm still meaning to replace these badges. We'll get there, I guess. Actually, no, this mangled a few things. Give me a second. Okay, that took way too long, but I think we're looking all right, more or less. Now, I'm thinking this could be our luxury vehicle with maybe still the regular radio, but a luxury interior. It's going to be nicer. And we'll see how that sells. This will be the nice Coniglio to have. And hopefully it doesn't take too long to engineer, too. I'm not going to go nuts, but we'll get the darker colored leather. It's probably fancy leather. And it was suggested in the comments that we get a purple carrot color going for our more expensive cars. I do kind of like that idea. Well, that might be a little bit of a bonkers color for a luxury car, but we'll try it out. That will be the Coniglio Elite. And adding that is actually going to cost us 5% of total factory efficiency, which is noticeable. And, oh shit, it would double our engineering time outright just to add that luxury interior. It's not even the new body type, it's just that interior. So, never mind. I'm scrapping that idea. It's not going to happen quite right now, as much as I might like it to. And then the Caprice, our sports car, is also going to need its second version. Now, some suggest that we try and get a 6-cylinder, nicer GT car too than the Caprice, and this car could actually fit a 6-cylinder engine. But if we decide to develop that, it's going to be an expensive proposition. So we'll keep it in mind, but I don't think I'll be going for it just right now. I can, however, tweak this awkward bit of cutout here. Boom. Much better. Now, what can we change on the Sport C version of the Lanita, our dual-carb champion of a 1.6 boxer? Well, first of all, it seems like it's better for me to go to lightweight pistons in terms of reliability at this point. The power penalty is less than the over rev penalty. I was running it too high. Squeak just a couple power out of steeper camshafts. Let's see, we'd already gone to another quality point in each of these categories, so I'll add those in for their engine. So what would it cost us to go from cast to tubular exhaust headers? Well, first off, the gain would be a few horsepower, and it starts early on. That's significant. And the cost would be some 2.5 man-hours, which is almost 10% of the engine. That would add on a bit. But I might consider it. Just because it's fun if the car is fast. Then we're pushing almost 80 horsepower. Not that the pistons like it very much. Let's see. We've already got 4 speeds. And we are pushing that reliability penalty with our gearing here. 16%. It doesn't like the short first gear, which I have for acceleration, and the long last gear, which I have for top speed. So I'm thinking that the Caprice is actually going to need a 5-speed transmission. And just looking at these numbers here, it's a hit. Easier to drive, sportier, more prestigious, more reliable by a lot, adding that 5th gear. And we get some fuel economy out of it. So that's a done deal. We can increase the top speed a bit too. I have tweaked the gear spacing. It's got a very wide gap from first to second. But apparently that's what gets us the best 0 to 60 time. We already had disc brakes. We can fit bigger ones by quite a lot, actually. I don't know why we didn't already. We've got the aero tray on this car. That's good because it gives us a discount on engineering time for the Coniglio. That's why the Caprice is of our research and development car. And we're getting with that situation where I'm either terminally oversteering or I'm not very close to the optimal sportiness handling. I can't get it quite how I'd like it to be. I could just sell the car terminal oversteering. It'll apparently sell fine. But the actual cornering Gs are better if I do it this way. And I guess that would be our... I'll throw an interior point on there too. Our new version of the Caprice would be a little more expensive, more desirable. I think that's where we want to be with it, because it's very cheap to begin with. For relative to the budget of the light sports car market, even though it's not an expensive market. Point of aero quality gets our top speed up to 115. Absolutely screaming, relatively speaking. I also played around with moving the weight forward and rebalancing the suspension. It got us more cornering Gs, but the rest of the stats were worse, so I don't think it's worth it. Now, maybe this is our opportunity to research that luxury interior that we like so much. We will see what this does to the engineering time of the Caprice if I create a version with a luxury interior radio. Or even just a premium radio. Engineering time is almost entirely coming from interior. But it's not off the charts. So we can get this done in 20 months with a luxury interior version of the Caprice. Actually, what if I do the radio too? What's that going to cost me? Click it, go back out to the menu, see the results. 6 months to get the radio in to luxury level. That's going to cost me sliders I don't want to spend on. I'm going to keep it just the interior, same radio. I might need to download more interior fixtures, but I'm not coming up with anything that suits me for a more luxury-looking kind of seat. So I'm just going to go ahead and give us some purple leather, why not? And that's how you know you got the expensive interior. It's got some colored accents. I promise you, it's worth the extra several $1,000s. While we're here, we can do a little science. If we want to make a big engine, we could fit a 2.4 liter boxer 6 in this car with dual overhead cams and aluminum construction. And that would, at the cost of its own reliability, quickly make well over 115 horsepower. Yeah, this would be a real monster. And would the car be drivable at all? Like the answer is, believe it or not, yes. So our theoretical 6-cylinder version of the Caprice could be looking good. The engine, however, would take, let's say we knock down this and that, maybe 5 years to design it, $10 million. Now I like that idea a bit, of keeping that crazy engine in our back pocket. We've got some money to burn. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to delete that car. We're not going to build it right now. That could be our legendary Razorback squeaker that the board of directors suggested. But it's not going to get built too terribly soon. We are going to develop that engine in the background. It won't go in any car, it won't be built, but we'll design it. So if I set the prices there, where the Primo would be 15,000 and the Elite 17,000. Apparently our updates haven't saved us any money, really. We're looking at about one factory shift consistently. And uh-oh, it'll take us a while to develop the engine, and that is mainly because of my exhaust changes I made, apparently. We will solve this problem with mostly money and whipping our workers, our engineers, to work harder. And that's what we end up with, a 20-month plan to develop the new versions of our existing cars. It's supposed to cost us $280 million. I'll take out a loan for half of that just to play it very safe. We should pretty much have the money in the bank. Now this motor here, I think I want to call it the Gladiatora. Gladiatore, correct my spelling. And this version's only a prototype. Just getting sliders down a chunk, because that can be added back in later. Pressure down too, so you want to learn, get familiarity from this. Funding up, because we like to waste money. And it'll be available to us in... We sure can't do 20 months, that's for sure. But 48 months, maybe. So we can just make that in the background. We can update it and put it into a car later. Now I'll run a couple months just to make sure our cash inflow still looks good. And it does. So now in the spring of 1967, we can take our abundant cash and spend it on a new marketing strategy. Let's see, if we break it down by current revenue, city, light delivery, family are our biggest categories in Fruinia. Vasia makes up about 1/3 of Fruinia. Deluha, we barely sell any cars, but they're a market to keep in mind. And Arcana, we really barely sell any cars. And Premium Budget sticks out as our highest category, oddly enough. I guess people who want a luxurious car but can't really afford one in Arcana, they're who's buying Coniglio. So we'll continue to spend most of our money on Ruinia. This is where it seems to be paying off most. Including some utility marketing, prestige. Vasia deserves a chunk as well. Luha isn't giving us much, but at least it's cheap. We'll focus on prestige some more there too. They're a pretty prestige-oriented place. In Deluha, the country taste is so heavily towards prestige that even delivery cares if you do prestige marketing. That's not exactly normal. Some egotistical operating decisions. You run a business, you're like, well, my delivery vans have to look expensive. And in Arcana, we're going to start marketing a little more heavily in general, but especially with regards to delivery. So I think our little delivery vehicles will sell there. Now, did I blow all our money on marketing? Pretty close, pretty close. Look at expenses. Marketing is now our second biggest behind car production. It's more than our lower payment. It's a lot more than our R&D department. I might actually trim back our spending in Vasia. That might be a little disproportionate to how much money we're making from them. That's a little more comfortable in terms of income. So I do need cash in stock, as right now we are about to spend money on factories. Yeah, the Coniglio factory shuts down in the start of 1968 and takes almost all year to build, which does suck because we had pre-orders waiting for that. Uh-oh. We are actually about to go broke. I should take out more of a loan. Oh man, we just went from $200 million in the bank to $3 million. I exactly spent all of our money on that factory construction. That was crazy. But now in late 1968, yes, money is coming in again. Not a ton, because I'm actually spending really too much on marketing. I was hoping that would pay off more and sooner, but it hasn't quite yet. Actually, it sort of paid off. Despite a factory expansion, we have a long line of pre-orders for the Coniglio II. I guess I've got to make that marketing money back. I've got to, you know, turn those prices back up. We appear to be unlocking 8 tracks. And yeah, increasing the price on the Coniglio II seems to have drastically increased our revenues. Or something else changed. Maybe I needed to wait to hire for the factory after it expanded. That could be the problem too. The Gladiatore in the background is still in development. It will be for a little while. I'm going to give it a minute. We'll wait through some of 1969 to have some money. But I think I'd like to try to get a loan and add a whole new model to our fleet. Premium 8 tracks unlocked. Alloy wheels are coming soon. Those could be good for us. They'll save a little gas. Although they're fancy for the 70s. Alright, January of 1970. Gasmia has opened their borders to trade with Fruinia. Oh, I forgot about that. That means we'll have to spend even more money on marketing. And our cars won't sell until we make a new facelift either in Gasmia. So that's the biggest market in the game, right? Most car buyers. They definitely matter to us. So, for a new car, we wanted... Aha! Here we go. 1970 K-car pickup and van. I think that's pretty on brand for Coniglio. We'll see if the markets actually care to buy it. But I love this teeny tiny little pickup. We will see if we can't make it out of steel, which means we'll have to get the loan on another set of steel presses in another medium factory, but I think we can do it. Ladder frame. That's sturdy, good for trucks. It's also cheap. We'll try making it front engine, rear wheel drive. And it's going to have our usual double wishbones in the front. They're pretty comfortable. That's where the cabin's sitting over. And a solid axle with leaf springs is very cheap and carries a lot of weight in the back. Even probably put a point of quality to the chassis. Maybe I won't, though. I think we'd be using a new version of the Lanita. Not terrible much needs to be changed here. Yep, just the same old engine. Rear-wheel drive, or 4x4 could be an option. We'll look at the cost later. Manual transmission or automatic? That could be a tough decision. But I'll say 4-speed manual for now. Maybe with a locker, for the benefit of off-road use. Hard tires or utility tires give us max load. All terrains give us off-road. I'll play around with it. We do still like our disc brakes. I'm going to up the wheel size by a lot so we can have better sized brakes. Do I want a skid tray? Maybe. Extra cooling airflow. And some very bog standard interior features. For for some reason, this truck wants to terminal oversteer like crazy. I don't know why, but it does. The handling is not what I'd like it to be, but I just have to deal with it for now. We end up with some crazy low top speed gearing to get rid of that reliability penalty while only having 4 gears. And so far, it's still not shaping out pretty good. Finally, we have poor off-road performance. They're wanting hydraulic power steering, which is not traditionally what we do, but I guess for a truck, it makes it easier. Give it the all-terrains. We're still rear-wheel drive. Do I need to go 4x4? It kills the gas mileage, but it gets us going off-road. Now scoring well in off-road utility and nowhere else. It may be that a tiny pickup body is not best thing. Also having trouble controlling brake fade, funny enough. So we're scoring bad in utility budget, which is never a good sign. It should be normally highly desirable, but not very affordable for the budget market. And we're not very affordable, we're not very desirable either. So why is that? Compared to the average seller in that market, we are hard to drive. We're very comfortable, apparently. And we are lacking in utility, which might have to do with the fact that the bed is simply small. And we're not cheap enough to make that a good, alternative. Let's drag that out. It does help a little bit. But it's still telling me that people probably don't want to buy this car. What if it were a van? What then? We score well for delivery? Light delivery loves it. I guess I'll buy any van. But I'd like to have this thing score well as a utility vehicle as well. The truck version. If we're going to make a whole model around it, I'd like to have both trims. So that's the 1.9 meter. Maybe the 2.5 meter could be more reasonable for us. You know, having a 1.6 liter engine probably also does not help our truck cred. But it's funny, the automatic is right out because I can't get anything close to a reasonable gearing setup without a huge reliability penalty. Just having a first gear that's low enough to tow and a top gear of 77 gives me a 30% penalty. I could give a top gear of 63 and have a 20% penalty. I can't deal with it. I'm going to put a 5-speed manual in this truck, which is a little unlikely, in my opinion. But it gives us both the top speed for fuel economy and the low first gear for towing and utility. There's an off-road market we could kind of hit too, but they want more seats, apparently. If I go nuts and make it a 4x4, it scores good in off-road utility. Which at least is one market we can target. Regular utility still kind of hates it. I've honestly never had trouble, by the way, making a utility vehicle that automation markets want to buy, so I guess that's proof that the AI got a lot more competitive in this update. looks like a premium interior actually goes surprisingly far on this. Not what I expect, but, you know, it's an option. Tech pool used for unlocks 0. Remaining tech pool after unlocks -1 in steering. Does Fruinia get, like, negative tech pool from the country in steering? Maybe. I didn't realize that. Funny enough, you can give the van 3 seat rows because there's no windows. No one wants to buy it anyway. If I were just to make it as is, it would sell apparently well in all delivery markets. They all want it. They all can afford it. Even with a premium interior. It needs stiffer springs, though. It'll carry more. And of course, despite being the van, this is still a 4x4 with locking diffs. So we could try to save some money making it like rear-wheel drive without any of that stuff. And that makes it cheaper. By a lot, actually. It takes off many man-hours. But of course, we're going to engineer both versions of the car. And this is probably a good time, actually, to talk about the new grip test. So, drivability, sportiness, and off-road consider different scenarios where there's a weather type and you have different wheels in good or bad terrain. For sportiness purposes, I think the one wheel with poor traction is because you're cornering hard or something. You can see how this changes if I go to 4x4. The mud test just gets way better. But it doesn't affect regular driving all that much. Let's let the delivery van be... Wow, what the hell? You get better gas mileage 4x4 than rear-wheel drive for some freaking reason. I can't imagine why. Look at the delivery van rear-wheel drive. And we're looking at selling, obviously, the truck and utility areas, the delivery van and light delivery, heavy delivery, medium delivery. And I'll see if I can make the van as well. And if it sells to anybody. And it looks like that would get us a surprising amount of passenger fleet sales, because I guess they want vans. A very few off-road premium. And some family utility sales. So you know what? Yeah, I guess I can make it. We're looking at 3 versions here, and I need to style them. Starting with the visual design for the van here, we obviously have kind of an American-style van body that's got like a long hood on it instead of like a cab over or mid-engine like a Volkswagen or Fiat. So I look like some old Ford vans for inspiration. They all have kind of a 2-part grille with some painted body in the middle. And I started thinking we're going to the 70s. It's time to get rid of the standard round headlights, look the same in every car. I'm guessing a little different. I'm not sure if that's realistic, but you can imagine there's, you know, the equivalent of 2 sealed beams inside that enclosure. And we've got evolution of the Carota bumpers that usually have like the vertical standards on them. Only there's some plastic on them now. I also saw there were a lot of two-tone factory options from vans at this time, so I definitely wanted to include that. I think it looks really nice on here. And of course, we have actual chrome now in our larger factory with steel. We don't have like low quality aluminum bodies anymore. So that quirk of Carota appearance is a thing of the past. And a body seam shows that that's a sliding door. Probably doesn't actually need to be that long, but oh well. And I've got the plate on one door of the back instead of down below with a bumper, because I like the asymmetrical bits we can fit in, like the badges that are always off to the side. 70s tail lights are easy. I don't need to make a bunch of parts. There's ones ready to go. Just boring square ones. And this is our vehicle with the most seats, so I figured I'd use it as the basis for our interior. Once again, the 70s are the black plastic dashboard era. We saw that in the Caprice as well a little bit. I just chose these vinyl seats that might be a little modern looking with the seatbelts they have on them, but oh well. I need to go download all the mods again. There's only so many options for seats that are ready to go, and I don't want to try and make a seat out of a bunch of 3D parts or anything. And of course, we have a little more room inside compared to your usual Carota car. Making floors is a pain, I don't like it. Then we just duplicated the seats back. I got lazy / forgot and didn't do any ceiling covers in this one. They're just black. I don't think it looks horrible that way though. I used some ready-made door cards at the front, just added a handle to the rear. Then these get copied to the delivery van, which is the same but with less seats. And the pickup needed a little more alteration. Some of the fixtures don't go on with the bed. I gave up on the off-center plate because that looked really weird on the tailgate. I had to tweak the seat size a little because that pickup has a small cabin. Now this is going to be the awkward part of the video. I managed to record all of this without my microphone. So I'm going to have to shorten it down a lot and just give you a summary. First things first, I went through all the other trims and made the brakes bigger because I didn't do that after making the body bigger. Obviously they were inadequate because the truck's heavier. Then having finished, it was time for a name. And I named it the Cetriolo because it means cucumber, and I like that a lot. The Consigna, which is also suggested as a name for the model, I'm using for the delivery trim here. I fussed with the engineering a little bit and tweaked it to 42 months. I was pretty pleased with how low the time was to begin with. So the sliders are pretty close to the defaults. Now, of course, this demands a new factory, which I named Khalid South. It's in the same city as the other one. And it's just a medium 1 factory with steel presses. I set the prices at $13K for the utility and delivery and $14K for the camper, which has more seats. By the way, that's what accampamento means, is just camp. Then, of course, we're updating the engine, and you know what that means. We're going to have to update the models that use the engine as well. The engine engineering gets to have some crazy high sliders because we're making 42 months to make not a lot of changes. That'll make them pretty cheap to produce, though, which we always like that. I had a moment of confusion as to why the old facelift version was also included in this facelift, but I couldn't figure out what was up with that. I eventually managed to fix it. So I signed off first on both the new van/utility vehicle and the engine, and then I ran the timer for a while before creating my facelift of the Caprice, which was so that we could get access to our Gladiatore engine. I didn't make a lot of crazy changes. I tweaked the gearing a little bit, and the Gladiatore engine got an update so it could go into the Elite version of the Caprice. That made about 150 horsepower. I think because it was made of aluminum, it weighed almost the same as the four-cylinder. Then, of course, it was time to update the Coniglio. I didn't do anything really crazy for this facelift, but we did upgrade to 8 tracks instead of AM radios. Oh yeah, actually I did do something a little crazy. I decided to go ahead and remake that luxury variant with a sedan body, and this time we're actually going to produce it. That got named the Coniglio Elite trim. Then I timed everything so it all come out at the same time as our new van model and engine variant. After that, it was time to crank up the R&D spending because we'd let it linger behind a little bit. I chose some various numbers. Marketing we did not increase spending on because I already put too much money in. Once the new models actually came out, we are rolling in cash. A little analysis shows that our delivery segment is so successful, it's actually accounting for, like, the bulk of our revenues. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but whatever. Since we released the Coniglio Elite, of course we have to see how we're doing in a luxury segment compared to our rival Dunbar 3, and the answer is not great, but it is selling into the premium market a bit. I don't know exactly what we're planning on next, but we have a few new bodies unlocked, so I'm just giving you a look at them. If there's anything you want to suggest we should use. It is probably getting time to replace the Coniglio II with a third-generation successor. And we also do have the Porsche bodies as well, if we want to replace the Caprice. And last thing, as always, I'm taking your suggestions in the comments for what we should do in the next episode, and I'm accepting any save files you have from the current open beta as a potential competitor if you want to see if your car can help bring Carota down a peg. Now with that said, it's on to the beamng testing. Now that we have a 6-cylinder in our Caprice, it's going to feel like a real sports car. But instead of taking on the same old track again, I figured I'm going to bring it on this hill climb time trial, get a feel for it. A 5-speed transmission feels like something it really needed from the get-go. That's what makes it feel like a normal car as I've known them. I can pretty much get the engine in its power band at any speed, and the power band is a lot more powerful, as you can probably tell. I did say 75 horsepower was enough to have fun, but Is 150 horsepower twice as fun? It really might be. I didn't check the exact numbers, but I think that the aluminum 6-cylinder weighs pretty close to the same as the cast iron 4-cylinder. It hasn't really changed the handling of the car much, which is still feeling pretty great. It wants to start rotating, but it's not too hard to stop it from rotating either. Got the power to make a wheel spin too. Carota Motors really came a long way from making a car that struggled to climb hills to this thing, which I think should be a real menace on the hill climb. Not that this is going to be a good time because I've just spun it, but you get the idea. Oh, geez. Wow, I felt like I was doing so good for a long time there. Oh, it's because it's snowy here. That's the problem. Well, we wrecked the test car, but it still counts. There, my time when I actually realized that snow is slippery is 2:01.9. So here we have our new Cetriolo, the 4x4 van. You can lock and unlock everything. But first, let's just take it for a spin in high gear, rear-wheel drive mode. It's geared very low, and it still doesn't accelerate that quickly. The 1.6 isn't a great fit for a vehicle this size. Oh, I've popped a tire. Goes over the sandy hill I don't think I was supposed to climb. After stalling once, we can cross those rocks with the diff open. Can I climb this? First attempt is a no. Let's do manual shifting. So the really steep mogul looks like a no-go. That's the sort of off-road we can't do. So for next time, we've got a lot of money to spend. Of course, we can think about what kind of new vehicles we need to add to our lineup and which ones need to expand the most. We've got to think we want to try and fit those 6 cylinders into more vehicles. We made an aluminum dual overhead cam, so that's more of a racing engine than a truck engine. We might be able to get into these things. I can look. And we also need to think about what engine technology we're going to invest in soon. As we get to the era of emissions and unleaded fuel, we'll have to think about changing away from carburetors. We can go to mechanical fuel injection now, or we can try and hold off and switch to single point electronic fuel injection a little later on. And turbochargers are going to become available too. And we need to decide if we're going to invest in turbocharging and make some turbo engines. Come on! And that's where we stall out.